going on, y'all? We live once again. Uh, this is We Need to Talk. Welcome everybody to the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining me, checking in. Shout out to my replay gang, everybody who tunes in on the afterwards. When you get through doing what you need to do, it's always here. It's always available. And it's definitely available for replay as well as you move forward in your journey and solidify the things that you need most. This is part of the reason that I do this on a nightly basis, because I want to create a long-standing catalog that you can return back to. Because although I've been told I have the psychic powers to know what you're going through when you're going through it, sometimes, you may not be available at the time when it's broadcast or when it's live, and I want it to be available in retrospect for you to be able to go back and listen to what's relevant to you. I try to create a variance with the topics to make sure that I'm covering everything, I'm hitting all of the pain points, and making sure that I give you guys some help and support. So thank you so much for checking in. Be sure to share the broadcast. Be sure to subscribe as well if you haven't already. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and be sure to click the link in the description, to check in with me personally if you would like to support by way of donation, if you would like to support by way of the online store, or if you would like one-on-one virtual coaching in the realms of mental health, in the realms of life purpose, partnerships, and physical health. Definitely click the link in the description. Be sure to check in with me. So, to the topic at hand, saying no and what it entails, where the struggles lie, and when it's appropriate to do so. I think, especially in the realm of dating, but even in conjunction with that, if we're talking about human relationships, if we're talking about interpersonal relationships, if we're talking about having a career, working, putting yourself on the line, wherever you have energy expenditure, there's a high likelihood that there are some areas where you are putting out too much energy, where you are doing too much for someone else, for a group of people, or for an organization of individuals. And you may be in need of this reminder when it comes to saying no, the power of saying no, and what it means. It is the enforcement and the acknowledgement and the expression of clear boundaries, and not just boundaries of the heart, but boundaries in order to maintain the best possible mental health and wellness, and emotional health and wellness, as well as physical, because we do know that there is an interconnected interplay between mental health and physical health, and definitely the emotional element as well. So a lot of times we could fall into the trap of doing what's asked of us based on the nature of the relationship, based on the title of the relationship, based on the bloodline of the relationship. And we may have been doing this so long, we don't know the clear line, right? We think that we've immersed ourselves so much in being that reliable go-to person, handling things for other people or for family members, friends, right? And then we think that when we start to say no, if we say no, number one, if we say no and we're capable of doing it, that's a violation, or that's being disloyal somehow. And then if we say no and we've been helping all along and conditioning that person to look to us as that go-to reliable person, then that would be a huge disruption, especially if we're thinking about elderly individuals, grandparents, aunts, stuff like that. There can be a part of us that feels beholden to be responsible for their every need. And there could be a high guilt complex as far as not being there if they pass on or if they are in compromised health status. And so, number one, our imbalanced giving of energy, of time, of effort can be based on fear, can be based on guilt, and can be based on how we have shaped our self-concept and where we have directed our self-esteem. Because if our self-esteem is based on how reliable we are, how much we can complete for other people, how much we can do for other people, how dependable we are, then we will seek to keep that self-esteem high by virtue of accepting any and all requests of help and assistance from any and everybody who knows you to have that mentality, and who has been connected to you over the years. And as you know, they don't have no problem asking you for something. And there's not a concern about your well-being or your mental health or your exhaustion levels or stress levels, because up until this point, even in the most stressful times, you've still been there. Even in the craziest times, the most difficult times, the times of hardship, not only have you been there still despite that and put yourself maybe in physical harm's way, and not been prioritizing the self-care, but you have worked to hide the fact that you're even going through something in the first place. And that cycle has to go. And again, anything that is tied to fear has to be counteracted. So fear has a way of driving us to do things that aren't in our best interest. Fear has a way of, by virtue of emotional reasoning, has a way of convincing us and persuading us, using our emotions as an illusion to push us into doing things that aren't in our favor, but maybe in the favor of our self-esteem or self-concept, right? So if our self-concept is predicated upon doing, healing, supporting, then therein lies the trap. Because I won't sit here and say that there's no incentives for you when you're helping people who constantly look to you for help, who depend on you for help, for support, even if they have other options. Now, this is when it gets particularly difficult to really look at, or it gets to a very specific degree when, you have people around you who you have almost conditioned to be lackadaisical and not explore all options. You're the first option for money, for support, for guidance, for help financially, career breakups, needing advice, relationship advice, mental health advice, inspiration, Bible verses. You become the first, in a lot of cases, the first and only line of defense whenever anything goes wrong in their life. So tell me how it's possible for you to be able to experience long-term unconditional happiness within yourself when you are not only responsible for bringing yourself out of depressions, out of slumps, out of a rut, out of, negative thought spirals, out of fear, anxiety, out of depression, bringing yourself out of these spaces when you go through things, and the compound aspect that your friends don't have the reciprocal nature. So when you go through, it's you going through. It's not you and then help. It's not you and then reinforcements. It's not you in connection and them helping. It's you alone. Add that to the fact that you're not only you're responsible for pulling yourself out of the quicksand, you have made yourself responsible for bringing them out as well. And trying to, as you're sinking, help someone not sink in the quicksand pit next to you is one of the most futile experiences that I can think of, because it's causing you to sink faster. And in essence, it won't work. There is no full accomplishment cycle for that, because as soon as you get them up a couple levels, they'll sink some more and you'll sink some more, and you'll have to pull them out for a different reason. You'll have to pull them out for a different situation. And again, it can become tricky because you may not see overtly any real major issues happening when you are there, but you do see the emotional kickback and the emotional self-esteem boost on your way leaving these people's houses, leaving these people's jobs, or wherever you are. And that can seem as though this is a good thing. I need to keep doing this. And that's what you have to work to switch into the other direction, because it's a falsehood, and it's a very complex illusion. The same way when you drink alcohol, you can feel boosted, you can feel more courageous and more outgoing. So you think that lack of inhibition or that personality boost is a positive, when in essence it's destroying cells in the process, in long-term usage terms. So, the goal is to counteract the fear by way of doing things that are uncomfortable until they become comfortable. And you, just like that fear was embedded at a beginning point, at maybe childhood or the family environment, and that perspective, that set of core beliefs was formed based on your experiences. It can be reformed based on your actions as an adult right now. This is not something that is not reversible. This is not something that's permanent. This is not something that you have to continue to do into perpetuity, right? Because I've studied fear for a long time. And I'm not even talking just grad school. I'm talking about just in general, just trying to figure life out, and, just my trials and tribulations in life, my trial and error, and just the experiment, the long standing experiment that I've put myself in, just as far as examining, every area of, thought, action, experience, and the data that shows up. And, one thing that I know is that when you put yourself in a position to neutralize fear, it requires a level of consistency to the contrary of what fear is trying to persuade you into doing. And not only that, but putting yourself in a space where you are rewarding the process. So in an attempt for somebody that, that needs something, needs some help with something, or needs you to do something, you don't just have to especially if it's somebody close to you, you don't just have to say no, just, and period, like, with that type of tone. You can always delegate certain jobs, certain things, and depending on what it is, it's a very subjective experience. But if something else can be done, you could say no, but here's some options. No, but here's a website. No, but I got a guy. You know what I mean? You can definitely do something to that nature so that, number one, you're still helping. And this is in transition. This is in your transition period. Number one, you're still helping. But number two, you are maintaining your boundaries and not over explaining yourself. You're not putting yourself in a space where somebody can undermine and try to loophole their way into getting you to help anyway. You have to get into the practice of demanding respect and of your boundaries by way of being as firm as possible with those boundaries. And saying no has to get to the point where you're used to it, it becomes second nature, and that you regain and realign with the intuitive part of you and fill your own cup so that when you're full, because the fake full is that self-esteem boost you getting when you're extra exhausted, but you get a little bit of boost from helping somebody, even though you're exhausted and you should have, you're on 2-3 hours of sleep and you got 30 other things left. You're still pushing yourself to do something, and it's hard for you to accurately gauge whether or not you're personally, in a space to even be doing it. Protect yourself enough, nourish yourself enough, self-care yourself enough, clear boundary yourself enough to the point where comfort and ease in life feels natural and not scary. Some of y'all are in a position where when things are going well and you're in a clear, cool space of relaxation and peace, it's uncomfortable because you're not helping anybody else. It's uncomfortable because you feel like you could be doing something else. It's uncomfortable because you don't deem that process as productive. And that's something that we have to get out of. We have to normalize being at peace and having our space and not being beholden to everyone but us as far as completing tasks and helping people to reach certain goals in spite of how we actually feel, or in spite of us even being in a position to exhaust those energies, right? But it's a process, and that process requires consistency. And again, the first step to doing so is getting used to saying no, but giving a referral if needed, depending on what that is. And if there's no way to really delegate it, you can say, hey, not at a point where I can help right now, taking care of me, doing what I need to do for me, right? Now, the added benefit of this particular process is this will create a fork in the road or a filtration experience. So this will start to divide your friendships. It will divide your family connections in this way. As you start to do what you need to do for you, you will have people that respect that and continue to be connected to you because all along it was you and it wasn't what you could do for them. Or they will see that you are now removing benefits. They will view your self-care stance as an offense, as a betrayal, and they will attempt to shame you, guilt you back into your old ways, back into your old patterns, and they may even ghost you in the process because they no longer have a use for you because they were only there for what you could do and not who you actually were. And this filtration process is critically important, and you have to let the process happen. You have to let the process, I don't care who falls off. And I say that for this reason. Shout out to everybody in the building. I see Erica, what's up? I see Wilmer Black, what's up? Latasia, Latasha, Jalecia, what's going on? Appreciate y'all. Back to it. So, for this reason, when you are in a space to do what's best for you, to reach your peak level, and take care of yourself. If taking care of me offends you, you have no place in my circle whatsoever. And I'm thankful for the filtration that exposed you. Because the saving grace in that is when you start working on you, success is inevitable. All of your goals, manifestations, all of those things. And when you start to level up, the stakes get higher. The last thing that I want is to be hugely successful and have a leech that was just incubating in my life pop up and me rely on them thinking that they had my back or thinking that they were a true friend, and they show their true colors when there's thousands on the line, millions on the line. I don't want to have anybody in my circle not exposed for their true self, whether that's to the good or to the bad. But I will enact filtering systems to expose people by virtue of their actions and their response to my self-care routine, hands down. And I'm not wavering on that. I don't care what the relationship is, because a lot of times we can be one way with friends, but then family, we feel like we got to do whatever they say. And I'll be the first to tell you, there are some family that'll treat you worse than friends will, or worse than enemies will. And there's no bloodline, there's no blood type, there's no family tree branch that is going to make me compromise my self-care for the sake of overexhaustion to meet somebody else's needs who does not reciprocate that energy and has never reciprocated that energy. That will never happen. And I want you all to feel the autonomy and not needing permission to do what's right for you, to do what's best for you and what's in your best interest in the long term. Because people will drain you to death until you speak up. There's not gonna, for my overwhelmed people, there's not gonna be a slowing down. Certain individuals aren't gonna be like, I was gonna dump all this on you, but you probably going through enough. I ain't about to do that. Now, the ones who do act like that are different, but they're, for the ones I'm speaking on right now, they need to go, and the clarity needs to be in play for what you are willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And now is practice. Now it's time to get into practice of saying no to certain things. And it doesn't have to be just a task, right? This can be a birthday. It can be an event. It could be this. It could be that, right? If you're not in that space, you're not in that zone, you got a million things going on. Obviously, communication is key, but if you can't make it, you can't make it. And I'm just putting that to you. And it doesn't mean you're not supportive, although that may be communicated to you. Doesn't mean you're a bad friend, although somebody might say that to you. And you shouldn't be vilified for taking care of yourself. That should never be interpreted as a betrayal or treated as such. And if anybody is doing that, that's again the side of the filter that they've chosen, and they should be treated according to that. So again, saying no, but also rewarding yourself for that part of the process. So conjoin your self-care routines or conjoin that with saying no, and make sure you nourish yourself after that, because it's a new behavior. For a lot of you, it may be something that's new, maybe something that you've been hip to mentally, but it hasn't translated into action yet. And I'm here to tell you now is the time to do so. Your mental health depends on it. Your emotional health depends on it. Your physical health depends on it. Your growth and evolution depends on it. And this goes for exes. This goes for situationships. This goes for singulationship. Anybody, anything, any human being that's connected to you. Don't be afraid to make the shifts necessary and create the borders, and then enforce those borders. You'll thank me for it in the long run. And I care about all you guys' well-being. As you know, your progress is my priority. So I speak with conviction because I know, what a lot of you go through. I know, the situation that you've been in. I know some of the, the guilt that comes with this process. But at the end of the day, it's growing pains, and it's all for the best, and it's all for the good, and the full functioning and the full experience of life that's on the other side of what you fear. So, I'm definitely here for, just to remind you all of that. And so thank you, for tuning in. Thank you guys for pulling up for this one. Hopefully it resonated. Hopefully it hit home. Definitely make sure you guys subscribe and share. Got a lot of cool things on the way. So be sure to stay tuned, and I will see you guys tomorrow night. Y'all be safe.